Welcome, friends, naked children on the back of misogynists, to Sunday Cinematic Service, where we dive into a vaguely religious themed film every Sunday. This week we chose to go on to the completely crazy Alejandro Jodorowsky film El Topo, a 1970 midnight movie wherein the titular El Topo, or the mole, he is... God, we've just literally watched this, and to actually try and describe the plot in itself is relatively difficult.
It's almost like an exercise in futility itself, to be honest, because
Doesn't it feel like Jodorowsky was particularly concerned, so...
I don't think he cared about the plot at any point while making this film, to be fair.
So basically, he begins the film going around with his naked child on his back.
Set like in a mythical take on the Wild West.
Yeah, he goes into a town which is sort of filled with blood, with corpses because everyone's been killed. Finds out that the general is responsible for this. Then he kills... We might spoilers all the way through. It makes no difference. So yeah, he goes into a town, everyone's been killed, he finds the general who's responsible and unmans him by cutting off his penis. Then, for some reason, he has to kill sort of the 4 legendary gunmen. Kills all 4 of them, but he then is killed by his lover, who has to choose between him and his other lover, and she chooses the other lover, kills him. That's only about halfway through. Then he's resurrected and must do circus acts to gain money so that the group of people... So basically, it's not very PC, but he's been living with a bunch of people who are kind of... They have genetic deformities because of incest, and they've been cast out into like a hole. He has to gain money to clear the hole so that they can all come back. So this is by circus tricks. At one point, he interacts with his possibly son, who's now a church minister, who's going to kill him after the hole is dug. They dig the hole, the people come out, and in a twist that nobody saw coming, the townfolk murder them all. El Topo, the mole, then kills the townfolk. The woman he's been with has a child, the son of El Topo. Then El Topo's other son rides away with the woman he's been with and the new child into the sunset, like the Searchers or something. What did you think of El Topo, Chris?
Well, El Topo, I don't know. It started out promising.
Yeah, I was digging it at first.
I was digging it. I was kind of appreciating kind of the atmosphere of it and kind of the whole take on... like a mythical version of the Wild West was interesting me. I kind of liked all the... It was very violent.
Oh yeah, rivers of blood.
Yeah, like I was kind of liking how exaggerated the whole thing was. It's hard to say when I lost interest.
I think the film's first hour is much better than the second. Like,
Yeah,
after
definitely.
he dies, that's the point where it starts to sort of bore me a bit.
Yeah, because like in the first hour, you've got him going around. You've got like a bit of a structure to it because he's going around, he's killing the 4 legendary gunmen. You've kind of got weird scenes involving him and his harem of women who are following him around, and the scenes were mostly interesting and they kind of kept on going. It was weird, it was certainly odd, but it was never dull.
Yeah.
That second half though is awful. It completely falls apart in the second half. Like, I don't even know what. And as we've discovered, the director Alejandro Jodorowsky is he's got some pretty interesting views, which we'll get to, and I think quite apparent in El Topo. How is this compared to his other films? Because I understand you've seen The Holy Mountain.
I've seen The Holy Mountain and Santa Sangre.
Oh, okay.
Another one he made. Holy Mountain I've seen maybe about 10 years ago. I remember that being pretty bad, from what I remember. That it suffers from a lot of the problems El Topo does, where it's got like laughably obvious symbolism. Like I was telling you about it yesterday, but there's a scene in that where like sort of the leaders of the world meet up and they sit around a table. and they press a button and a fire starts in the middle of the table, and they like throw all their money into it. And the guy in that, I think, is even more of an obvious Jesus Christ character than El Topo is in this.
Oh no.
The Holy Mountain's pretty bad. Santa Sangria, honestly, God, it has the same problem as this in that it just feels like a different film every 10 minutes, and it kind of has like very loose structure, and it kind of gets a bit dull. Not a massive fan of him. I honestly, God, can't understand the bigger lore of why anyone would be, to be honest.
I mean, I suppose it is, especially with El Topo, like, it is such a film of its day, I guess, and, you know, obviously it's regarded as being, like, the first midnight movie, you know, the thing that spawned, you know, basically cult cinema.
Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of people say, like, you know, there's almost like a pre and a post El Topo in terms of, like, cult cinema. You know, like all these art house cinemas just popped up overnight to show El Topo. You know, like I was reading that apparently, you know, there wasn't, like, when it was first released in New York, there wasn't a lot of advertising for it. You could only see it at midnight at this very specific cinema.
Yeah.
And it kind of gave it this underground allure, like, you know, you were in on a secret, like this weird film, man.
Yeah.
And it inspired fans such as John Lennon and Yoko Ono.
Who financed the Holy Mountain after the success of this.
That's right, yeah. So I mean, outside of its placement in terms of probably its importance for cult cinema, I don't really think it offers a lot now.
It's kind of a good time capsule for sort of what the sort of dominant like really pretentious art house films were at the time. Like,
as I said, I can understand why it was popular when it was first released, why there was that allure there, because I think it's fair to say that probably not many people had seen a film like this before.
Yeah, definitely not. Yeah, like if like the amount of people that has been claimed to have seen it's true, it's much bigger than any film like this beforehand, and
yeah,
it is unique, especially for the time where it is kind of a mixture of high and low art. Well, not high art. I mean, it does allusions to things like the Bible and sort of having a deep. I don't think it explores it particularly well.
Yeah, like it's taken like a recognisably American genre like the Western and tries to elevate it to the level of like a mythical religious style of storytelling. You know, like he said in the audio commentary, which we briefly listened to the director. You know, he said like, I started reading all these great sacred texts, and he just lists over all these sacred texts that he read. He said, "Oh, why can't film be on the same level as like, religious literature?" And that's kind of what he was aiming for. But yeah, it's that combination of high art and low art where he takes a genre like the Western, which is like the all-American Western, because you're around the time of all the Western TV shows and Gunsmoke, yeah. So like it had been kind of commodified, and taking that and combining it with the art style of like a European art house cinema or an art house director like Godard. You mentioned Godard or Bergman, or
Antonioni,
Fellini.
I think was definitely a big influence on this. Like,
so taking that and then trying to elevate it to a certain level, I can see why it appealed. Definitely can see why it appealed to a group of hipster New Yorkers.
Yeah.
In 1970s, like, oh man, it's a trip. But, unlike other trip films, like 2001, for example, like 2001 still holds up today.
Masterpiece, yeah.
Definitely El Topo doesn't, because it's dragged down by the pretension of it all, I think.
Yeah,
I think that's what kills it, and the massive ego of its director.
Director, star, writer, musician on the score.
Yeah, I mean, we had to take a bit of a bathroom break, kind of at a halfway point, and I was, researching film on my phone. And I didn't realise that the main character in the film was played by Alejandro himself.
Oh, okay.
So that was a nice surprise, and then the film all made sense. It all made sense then.
Well, I've never seen a more blatant, like, guy who thinks he is God. Well, the character constantly refers to himself as God.
Yeah.
And, it's obviously just an excuse. Well, he says it on. So there's, we had the tartan edition of this. This is what we watched. And there's, a little extra. It's, a 6-minute thing where it's him, talking about the film. And he's like, I get to fuck all the women. And, it's got some questionable views we'll get into a bit later.
Yeah.
But, it really does get dragged down, the fact that there's a disconnect between, the fact that he is supposed to be this mythical figure. And I'm going to say it now, I don't think Jodorowsky is the most charismatic cinematic presence ever.
No.
He mainly just looks like slightly awed and confused by things that are happening around him.
Which in the world of El Topo is understandable.
Yeah, but like you just need someone. He's not got like like a Clint Eastwood or something. I think maybe me a little bit more. Wouldn't it be more interesting if he sort of barely reacted to stuff around him?
Well, yeah,
that could have created a disconnect then between like if he is actually a god, then he wouldn't be surprised by all this stuff. And
I mean, and some weird stuff happens.
Yeah,
weird stuff happens. Like as I say, but the first half has like a certain like kind of allure to it, where you can kind of just following along, and it was kind of fun. When he gets to meet all the different.
The four gunmen.
The four gunmen, and kind of the different environments that they're in. There's one who looks after bunny rabbits in the middle of the desert. There's another one who has a lion.
There's a one who lives in a tower, and get this, folks at home. He's got two assistants. One of them's got no legs. Other one hasn't got any arms.
So they help each other out.
Oh yeah, it's pretty fucking out there, man.
Yeah, man.
I bet you've never seen someone with no arms and no legs working together, man.
Yeah, man. And that's kind of why I don't think El Topo holds up now, because so many of those tropes of quote unquote art house filmmaking, I've got little people, and I've got all these strange people in the film, man.
There's dead animals everywhere,
man. There's dream sequences and religious imagery and
rape,
lots of
which we'll get into.
Lots
definitely.
of awkward 70s rape,
yeah. Lesbians,
fascination with religion and God, and
there is a bit in this which is laughable now where someone gets killed and doves come.
Oh yeah,
that is such a cliche of like art house cinema and just bad pretentious stuff. It's just unbelievable.
Because this is what happens when doves cry.
All right, Millhouse Governor.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is obviously, it's not like there's not a place for exploration of religion in art house cinema. In fact, there's more than it. One of my favourite films from the whole, early days of the European art house scene, The Seventh Seal.
Great film.
And just Bergman in general, was tackling with his, with religion and how he felt. It's a great movie because it's balanced. It doesn't ever really go into the realms of out there pretension. It's a very atmospheric film. It works on a narrative level, but it also works on a thematic level as well.
Yeah.
It's very rich.
Well, Bergman's films are about ordinary people having to deal with God's absence normally.
Yeah.
There are no characters in it, so it's hard to engage or anything that's happening. And I think the first half works better because it is little short vignettes that are built around this amazing image. We've been criticising the film, but it does look absolutely amazing.
It looks great, yeah. I mean, a lot of the framing is great, and obviously it's not like in widescreen; it's in 4:3, and it looks great. The way he's able to box everything off, and the placement of the characters in the frame. It's as good as a Sergio Leone film, which is obviously again something that is really aped in the film, I think.
Really?
Yeah, believe it. Yeah. The whole placement of characters in a scene is very Leone-esque, and he's got a good eye.
Yeah,
he's got a good eye for some great visuals, but
there's beautiful shots you could put onto sort of you could have this as a place, a mat behind, what's it called, a screensaver. There's a lot of nice screensavers in the film.
There's a good Twitter that I follow, and it's one perfect shot.
Oh yeah, I know that. That's a really famous one. Yeah, where it does just post a perfect shot and stuff.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, and you'd have a litany of ones to do for El Topo. There's loads of just great shots and visuals, but it just all gets dragged down by the ego.
Yeah,
it's just
the ego and sort of just how ugly a lot of the film is as well.
Yeah,
I think a difference between this and a midnight movie you've got the work of David Lynch, and David Lynch said he was actually inspired by this film.
Yeah, I was reading that. Yeah, but then others, Rocky Horror Picture Show and John Waters.
Well, that's genuinely interested as well in subcultures, and they're quite open and. they're about exploring different sort of ways of living, and they don't judge the characters.
Yeah.
We watched the commentary. And he literally, there's a bit on the 6-minute discussion with him where he talks about how like I was using these monsters, and he's talking about people who just have like genetic deformities.
Yeah. Because like in like the characters in like a John Waters film, for example, like you never feel like he's exploiting them.
Yeah.
Like you feel like he's got a genuine affection for these people.
Yeah.
Like the famous scene in Pink Flamingos with the singing anal sphincter man. Like he just turned up on set and was like, "Oh, look, I can do this," and John Waters was like, "Oh, that's great. We'll put it in the film." Like there's a genuine love and affection as opposed to like
staring at people as if they're like awkward freaks, basically.
Yeah. I mean, there's loads of that in this film. Lots of unfortunate like misogynistic subtext as well.
Yeah,
I have a lot of issues with filmmakers like him from this era where they use their art to cover up basically what raging misogynists they were.
Well, he's barely covering it up. Well, on the commentary it comes out even more so, but in the film you can tell that this is a deeply problematic man. Yeah. Well, there's that scene later on where he basically has to have sex with his girlfriend in front of all these like different people, and I was like just going, "Oh my god!" afterwards, because basically she's like, "Oh, you must hate me. You will leave me because I've embarrassed myself." And it's like, fuck it off, like
Yeah.
He's written this dialogue where she's like, like you had to rape me in front of all these people, and now I'm ashamed for it and all this, and it's Jesus Christ.
It really comes out like in his audio commentary where he's saying that like basically women have like an inherent natural narcissism.
Well, he is a psychoanalyst, so he will know about the mind
and a poet and a sculptor. And a unicycle rider, lobotomist, yeah, mortician. He's everything. He's a poet, an artist. He's everything. So
space cowboy,
race, yeah. Soapbox derby racer. He's everything. This guy. What was I saying? Oh yeah, the misogyny. Yeah. So basically, he said in the commentary that women have an inherent narcissism, and this is what's pulling down, the main male character of the film. And obviously, he's said the director Alejandro has said some unfortunate things in recent years about accusations of rape on the set of El Topo. And basically, he just used it as an excuse just to show off what a big production it was and how John Lennon and Yoko Ono were fans and. Well, I mean, we're not here to make accusations or anything, but if it happened, it happened, and if it didn't, it didn't. But I don't think when you ask a question, did you rape someone on the set of El Topo, you should mask it up with, like, John Lennon and Yoko Ono were fans, and try to big yourself up, if you know what I mean.
He seems like a horrible narcissist just from, like, the interviews and the comments. In that comment, he's like, apparently men have a physical narcissism, women have an emotional narcissism.
Yeah.
So, it's all this sort of bollocks, doesn't make any sense. He comes across like someone who's just trying to hide the fact I didn't know what he's talking about with all these, like, I read the Tibetan text, the Christian text, the Hindu text,
the Kabbalah,
and all this stuff. I don't think there's any intellectual sort of firepower in this film.
No.
And I think it is a pretty ugly film because it's luxuriating in the violence as well. Like there's not anything like that. This violence is wrong or anything. It just feels like he's showing all of this because it's like this is cool, as opposed to what you'd think, which is like this horrible stuff that's happening. Like And it is ultimately just giving you as many thrills as, like, I don't know, a Transformers film. Like, there's not any more. He might put, like, some doves in and some dead animals, but I don't think it's any more deep than any other kind of, like, stupid, like, film of this nature. Like,
yeah. So he doesn't come across very well, and the film doesn't come across very well either.
It just gets so bogged down in the second half with there's just long scenes where it's him doing a circus act.
Oh god, it's so bad. Yeah, because like he shaves completely. You see a scene where basically so El Topo is killed. He's shot 5 times in the 5 locations where the wounds of Christ were, in case you didn't get the imagery markers, It's like,
wait. Really?
Yeah.
All right, okay,
yeah. So he's metaphorically crucified by being killed.
Yeah, very subtle it is.
He then gets put into a cave. He then escapes the cave and he's been resurrected, you see. He's a changed man and he's trying to change the world. There's a really funny scene where his new girlfriend says, like, oh, he's changing the world. And he's, like, just doing, like, circus acts and stuff. He's doing, like, magic tricks and, like... doing tap dancing, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you changed the world, man." He's trying to like build...
that scene where he dances outside the courthouse or whatever it is is just hilarious. He looks like Johnny Depp in that Alice in Wonderland where he does that dance in it.
Yeah, we were talking about it yesterday, weren't we? Yeah. So.
Well, we are ostensibly a religious podcast. So, what did you think of the religious? What do you think this film has to say about religion?
Ultimately, nothing.
Yeah,
I don't think it has anything to say about religion. It's just throwing in religious imagery because it creates this illusion of depth.
Yeah, because the religious imagery of it and like the fact that it's mirrored in the plot doesn't add anything to it. It's not trying to say anything about religion.
It's like Mother.
Yeah,
all allegory, no substance. It's like, all right, so El Topo is, a stand-in for Jesus and God. Well, that's confused from the offset.
Well, first he starts off as God, then when he dies and comes back, then he's Jesus. Why wouldn't you use the Son as Jesus? I don't understand.
That's how you do it, yeah. Because, if you were going to do this, and you could, this whole idea of, a mythical Western where, the lone rider is going around and he's killing people and giving people life. You could code that as being God being religious, and then your second half is about passing that mantle down to the son,
which this tries to do really badly.
Yeah. Maybe the son gets unjustly killed or something, and you know what I mean, really. Okay, sure, it's all allegory, but then at least the allegory doesn't get confused.
Yeah,
because ultimately, I don't know what he's trying to say.
Well, it's the thing that's so confusing and all is he's trying to do this thing where so in the end of it he's trying to contrast sort of the life that the people who live in the rock live. They're the humble people, and the people in the town are the evil modern society. But the problem he's got with that is he can't stop himself from having everyone be weird for weird's sake.
Yeah.
You have the weird scene where the fat guy's walking around with no shirt on and he's cleaning the toilet El Topo. And the bit where there's a really awkward bit where these women sort of rape a slave.
Oh god, yeah.
But they're presented just as weirdly as the people in the cave are. They've got they're all really overweight and they've got these huge armpit hairs and stuff, and it's basically portrayed in the most bizarre way possible. But because he's doing that, he underwrites the central idea of what he's trying to play with, that the humble freaks, they know what's happening, man, and society is just corrupted, and look what it's doing to us. But by presenting society in the weird way he does, it doesn't make none of it makes any sense, basically, because it's so ham-fisted about what it's saying. You can just tell what it's doing, but he does it so badly.
The ultimate takeaway is that society is ugly.
But then everyone's ugly.
That's
though,
what I
in
mean.
the film.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, just society at large is ugly. Neither side is, But you shouldn't relate to anybody. Everyone's bad. We have all these belief systems which mean nothing. They don't give any meaning ultimately, and it's just ironically, a very narcissist take on the world.
Well, yeah, and also he claims constantly that all these violent acts, they're what we need to do to break out of the cage that we're in, and all this sort of bollocks that anyone. It's it's similar to these people who are you gotta fight someone, man. That's the only way to like Fight Club.
Like Fight Club.
Yeah, it's he talks constantly about how violence is the way to push through, and for an act of destruction you can create that kind of stuff. So why does he think that the townspeople are so ugly when all they do is kill and live in He's trying to portray narcissism as bad with the sort of townsfolk who are evil and kill the humble people. But then earlier on, he's portrayed violence as the ultimate transgression that'll push you through to sort of saintlyhood. Which is it?
Please answer us, Alejandro, please.
Well, it's just so confused, and just none of it makes any sense, and it's not enjoyable to watch, I don't think, either, in the end.
No, definitely not. I'd say that first half is okay, because, at least there's, some interesting imagery, and the thematic resonance isn't getting too confused, even if there is a terrible rape scene. As far as first half goes to problematic 70s art house films, I've seen worse.
Yeah.
But then it just devolves into just wankery.
The film would have been better if it was 90 minutes, and it had extended the first half slightly, and ended with him being killed.
Yeah.
And maybe then you could have had sequel bait by having, the Rock at the end, showing that, and then clever people going, oh yeah, like Lazarus,
like
Jesus,
yeah.
But it's just so it just goes on for. It has the problem where it has it just stops, then starts again, and constantly throughout the film you can never get into the groove of it. But yeah, the four, or you could have killed the four main people, and then there would have been a new villain revealed, and that would have been what he had to fight. Yeah, it's not good. Would you recommend anyone watching El Topo?
Only if you're curious and seen the birth of midnight movies, I guess. Its historical import is quite big. You know, it does kind of raid across the landscape of cult cinema. So I am personally glad that I finally watched it.
Yeah.
So I can, add it to me list. But in terms of people watching it depends on how interested you are just in this era of film,
Yeah.
The early days of cult cinema and art house cinema, and only if you're interested in the development of film, I think it's quite an important film to watch. But outside of that, I don't think it holds up on any level today.
Yeah, it's got bad acting in it. It's pretentious and doesn't make any sense. It doesn't have apart from the imagery, there's just nothing really to sort of check out of it. Would you want to check out any other Jodorowsky films?
No.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, well, hopefully we'll have to watch something good eventually soon.
Yeah.
Maybe a Christmas film. But yeah, that was El Topo.
Whatever it was called.
Yeah, that was El Topo. Not good, folks.
No.